Hello and namaste, my beautiful friends. I am Jill Loftus of Nuit Astrology. Welcome to your planetary energy forecast for the week of September the 1st, 2025. Now, this week and this month have a lot of volatility, partially because of the two eclipses. But we also have some powerful outer planet connections, but also outer planet shifts. Two of the prominent shifts that we will feel this week is Saturn moving back into the sign of Pisces, which happens on the 1st. Now, you will recall that Saturn has moved into Aries and was joined as well with Neptune. But Saturn is moving a little bit more quickly in its retrograde phase and is now backing into Pisces. So this is a distinct shift in energy. I would definitely observe water or water-related events with this change. It's not that she will or Saturn will, immediately not impact the Aries portion of your chart. But with this backing into Pisces, it definitely brings in more limitations, restrictions, and hard lessons that relate to the water element and also relate to what we immerse ourselves in. This can be a tendency to also highlight our self-destructive or self-harming patterns. So that's something to be aware of. So kind of look over the last 2 years of the life and see what the master lessons were in the Pisces area of life and see, because you're about to have a final review, a final look. And often this dramatic shift from one sign to the other, from 0 to 29, moving backwards, really highlights this change. Now, we also have this week the planet Uranus stationing and beginning to move retrograde. This happens on the 6th. Now, this is kind of interesting in that everyone else is retrograde. All the other outer planets are retrograde. Saturn is retrograde, Neptune is retrograde, Pluto is retrograde. So now Uranus joins the party. And remember, all of those outer planets are still maintaining this positive configuration towards each other, which is going to accelerate change. Now, another thing to kind of highlight for this week is this Jupiter connection to the nodes. I've been talking about this for at least a week, maybe a little longer, as it was moving into this position. But Jupiter is sending trine, which means positive energy, to the North Node in Pisces. So very supportive water energy, and sending a sextile, a little bit of blessing over to the sign of Virgo, where the South Node is traveling. Now, this Jupiter energy can be very positive, optimistic, expansive, as Jupiter likes to be. It can make us consider new ideas, be open to trying new things. And with it being in the sign of Cancer, there might be a lot going on as far as our sense of intuitive understandings or deeper emotional, how that reflects, that emotional body reflects back into our outer world. It also is helping us with this South Node in Virgo, helping us to find a higher vibrational Virgo exploration of not being so hard on ourselves, not being so controlling, not being so exacting, because that prevents us from receiving the good things because we're so busy feeling down, feeling critical, feeling like we don't deserve it because we're not doing something well. So that energy is in play all week and is wonderful. But that Jupiter is also being challenged by Mars. Now, Jupiter enjoys being in the sign of Cancer, right? But Mars is in Libra, not feeling very empowered, not feeling like he's very comfortable. He does not want to discuss peace and justice and partnership. He wants to do what he wants. So there's a conflict here, and this could introduce passive-aggressive behaviors. This could introduce the delay of honesty or frank conversations or even actions because we're concerned about what other people think or more concerned about other people's feelings. It could be also that you could feel a callousness about other people's feelings, and you may be experiencing that on the other side of the scales, so to speak. So there's definitely a caution flag up in relationships, partnerships, conversations, but also our own self-esteem and self-worth. We must be cautious that we're not engaging in passive-aggressive behaviors, that we are being more clear and honest. And that will be harder with Jupiter in Cancer, which is kind of, tends to waffle on things, tends to be a little uncertain, maybe a little emotional. And Mars in Libra, which is, sometimes weighing out what to say for so long it doesn't make a decision or move forward. And, the other parts of the chart become impatient with that indecisiveness or that indecision. Now, we also have Mercury on the 2nd moving into the sign of Virgo. So finally finishing up that extremely long tour through the sign of Leo because of the retrograde. So Mercury into Virgo is like a big sigh of relief for Mercury. It says, I'm home. I'm where I belong. Let me analyze some data. Let me make a list. Let me see how I can be of use. Mercury in Virgo is very industrious. And so giving the mind something to do that is helpful is great. So this is a wonderful time to initiate a mantra practice, do some intensive thinking, but we are going to keep an eye on it because it's also going to be involved in this full moon lunar eclipse that occurs on the 7th. It will be close to the sun and standing across the sky from the moon during the eclipse. So we're still going to be a little cautious with the mind. We're still going to be a little wise. We're going to take a breath before we speak, before we think, before we act, before we hit send. Another reason to be careful with this Mercury slipping into Virgo is that once it does that, it immediately picks up a square, a difficult angle to Uranus. Now, we are already watching Uranus in Gemini, making changes to the way we communicate, the way we interact, the way we think. It has issues with technology. It's changing the way we commute, the way we travel, the way we interact with each other in community. Well, to come into an argument now with Virgo, with Mercury in Virgo, it's kind of like it's arguing with its own neighborhood. It's arguing with its own neighbor. So this really could, give us more of a sense that it feels like Mercury is still retrograde, or there's some surprising events, or I'm getting this image of chains breaking, ruptures. So maybe that's supply chain. Maybe that's what I'm seeing, but I see the rupture of these chains when I talk about this. So just something to be really careful about. Remember also with Mercury squared Uranus, you could have sudden ideas that could really send you in the wrong direction. So be careful that you're not kind of like a bloodhound sniffing down, the scent and realizing it's taking you into a place that you really didn't willfully want to go. Now, the exact square with Mars in Libra to Jupiter is on the 4th. So we're going to lean into the positive connection with the nodes, see how Jupiter is helping us there. And then the Uranus station is, depending on your time zone, either on the 5th or the 6th. And so we're going to observe that and see how that registers. Now, of course, Uranus in Gemini, pausing to go retrograde, could create all kinds of spectacular, sudden, shocking events. Again, it could be with the mind. It could be something in the air. It could be a weather-related event. It could be an outage of some type. We're really going to keep an eye on that and make sure we're, pretty prepared for to be flexible, to be adaptable. And then we're also going to keep an eye on that full moon lunar eclipse. Now that is on the 7th at 2:09 p.m. Eastern. So adjust that for your time zone. And if you know your chart, it's at 15 degrees of Pisces. So remember though, it is standing across the sky from not just the sun, which creates a full moon, but also Mercury. And so this is a dramatic ending of some type. This is a letting go. This is a purgative full moon. And remember with eclipses, it's not just a standard full moon. This is something that has a lot of potency, a lot of energy, a lot of power, and it can go in ways that you did not anticipate. It's not unlike looking at the where you're starting on the map and the ending and thinking that you'll get there in a nice straight line, and you don't. You have an enormous detour and ups and downs and twists and turns that you could not possibly have anticipated. So being a little bit of being a little flexible of mind, being a little bit more adaptable, being a little bit more in tune to your intuition so that you can make the right adaptations, changes, and letting go, that is probably the best way to work with this energy. It's definitely a volatile period. And, you know, if you started feeling, you know, or sensing or experiencing difficulties even, you know, a couple weeks ago, that definitely could be associated with the eclipse. And remember the eclipse axis, they stand across the sky from each other and they relate to the nodes of the moon. So wherever the nodes are is where the eclipses are happening. So we've got them in Pisces and in Virgo. So that polarity in your chart is where there's a lot of change happening, a lot of letting go, but also a lot of new beginnings. And remember, we just had a new moon at 0 Virgo last month, and we're going to have a solar eclipse at 29 Virgo later this month. So definitely knowing where those two sectors of the chart are, the Pisces and Virgo. And go back. I think it's super helpful. Look back, if you can, to 2006. That was the last time the nodes were there, the last time you experienced some of these endings and new beginnings. Where can you see the patterns? Where can you see the rhymes, so to speak, the rhythms of the life? All right, so let's see. What do I say? I would say as far as the light of the week, I still am loving the Jupiter connection with the nodes. I think this is very future oriented. This is very, you know, Jupiter in Cancer is going to care about the family and the children and things like that. It feels like to me there's a lot of energies out there that don't seem to care about, you know, being a good parent, being a good mother, being a good, you know, taking care of the vulnerable, the people who need it the most. But I'm hoping Jupiter is there. Really helping and prompting us to do better with that. I'm also, I'm kind of interested to see what happens with this Uranus and Gemini station. I feel like it's barely gotten in there. And I think some of us, at least me personally, I need more clarity about what the message Uranus is trying to send me. So, you know, sometimes you need a little quiver, a little shake in the life. So I would say those are my bright lights for the week. For the shadow, I'm definitely keeping an eye on that Mars energy. Mars being a little tricky to Jupiter. I'm also going to keep an eye on Saturn. You know, that Saturn movement back into Pisces. I think that's going to be a little bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people who really thought that they made it through some difficulty over the last 2 years. They feel like they've kind of put a bow on it and finished it up. And instead, now here it comes for the last 2 hits, right? The third time's a charm is that it goes over the degrees and then it comes back over them and then it'll move forward. So this is the middle. This is the middle part when it slides backwards and kind of exposes the gaps, exposes the weak points. That's all Saturn does for us, is show us where we're not strengthening our borders enough, we're not strengthening our structure enough, we're not putting in the hours, the discipline, we're not doing the work. That's all Saturn asks us to do. So, but keep an eye on it, Saturn. Saturn has a little bit of a malefic edge, and to have both the malefics in a little bit of an argument with other planets this week, I'm keeping an eye on that. Now, as far as the Celtic Cross, it's fascinating. I did the Celtic Cross on this lunar eclipse, and it, of course, ties into the Isis Lotus tarot spread, which is a basket full of sketch. It really has 2 very distinct ways to work with the energy. So I definitely have the astrological caution flag up. Definitely watch the Isis Lotus tarot spread. I think it has some information in there for you. And I wish you the best week. I hope you navigate this with skill, with style. Stay grounded, my friends. And if this was helpful, please comment, because it helps me to stay motivated to record these videos. All right, my friends, wishing you the best. Stick around. Namaste. Bye. Hello, my friends. Namaste. Let's take a look at our Celtic Cross on this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. What do we need to know collectively in order to navigate this eclipse well? Now remember, this is a full moon, so we're letting go, we're releasing, we're purging, we're eliminating, we are blessing something and turning it loose. So let's take a look. This reading is for the collective for this full moon. right, now the first card is us. It's you in this situation, the querent, so to speak. And what a beautiful card we get. We get the sum zero of the tarot. We get the Fool. This indicates that there's a lot of potency to this particular lunar eclipse, that we really are co-creators in this. And so we have to ask ourselves, what do we think is getting in the way of us seeing the infinite universe as a playground in which we will manifest our best life? Now, what's crossing us is Seven of Cups. Clearly feeling scattered, a little overwhelmed, maybe too many possibilities, too many options, too many distractions. There's a lot going on. Now, in the past, the factor has been Wheel of Fortune. Karma. We've been learning so much. We're in a very deep collective time frame where the collective karmas are really accumulating, and we are really beginning to recognize how connected we all are. In the future, well, look at this. The High Priestess is here. So clearly this is a most favored energy to work with, a very spiritual energy, as befits Pisces. Crowning thoughts, the Devil. We're really stuck in some difficult loops, some difficult mental patterns. Perhaps even we almost might be addicted to the bad news. We might be magnetized to negativity. We are really needing to get better control of the mind. Subconsciously, King of Wands, we are really actively inspired at a deep level to take action, to move towards something. We are ready to make a change. Advice, Three of Swords. So this shows some difficult feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So the advice I would say that this is to get it under control before it escalates. Watch what you're feeding. Watch what you're feeding. Now I'm getting multiple cards here, I think two, for the outside influence. Two of Wands, we're at a crossroads. We need to make a decision. Eight of Wands. Also, we need to realize that we need to be nimble because something is going to rapidly change. This eclipse is going to trigger an event that will impact us. What do we want to happen? Well, here's the Sun. We want to be able to step into our power. We want to be able to live our lives and feel fearless, feel proud, feel like we can, offer our goodness to the world. And the outcome will be abundance. 10 of Pentacles. What a beautiful outcome for this eclipse. So I'm loving this. This is a wonderful spread. Now, readers fan, a little extra info. Three of Cups. Go towards that which you find fulfilling. Justice. Understand that you must, consider what's fair, what's balanced, what's wise. Death. There will be some endings. And Page of Pentacles. Those, of course, will yield new beginnings. Wow. Well, I think this is a really exciting spread. Definitely the mind are the two trickiest cards that we got. So get yourself in order. Remember, Pisces stands across the sky from Virgo, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. That Virgo precision, that desire for things to be a certain way, can really take us away from the magical possibilities that the Fool represents, right? It tends to be, be really concerned about doing things the right way. Instead, try to do things expansively, and there will be great reward at the end. All right, my friends, I'm wishing you the most wonderful week. I'll see you next week. Bye.